And that's what we're going to talk about. So you were in the monastery for 10 years.
Yep.
And you're practicing, you're doing your mental training, your meditation, you're honing your concentration.
Yeah.
So how would you define, we're talking about willpower and discipline.
Yeah.
Some people use those interchangeably. How would you define those words?
Yeah. I define them very simply. I define willpower as a mental muscle. So if you could draw biceps around your brain in a very simplified way, that's how I would define willpower, right? And discipline is, actually there's three elements I would say. There's willpower, discipline, and love. And a lot of people want to create discipline in their life, but they start and then they struggle and they stop. And I feel like the driving factor behind discipline is love. When you love something and you're passionate about it, then you want to discipline your life more so that you can have more of that love. So I have a daughter, for example. She's 10 and a half months old, and I love her very much, and I want to spend a lot of time with her. And in order to spend more time with her, I need to discipline my life, right? So I use my willpower to create that discipline, right? That strict rigidness of my day that allows me to have more time to spend with my daughter. But it's the love that drives the act of being disciplined. And I use my willpower to discipline myself by saying no to things, no to opportunities, no to people, and structuring my life and being clear on what my priorities are. So I say discipline is the byproduct, whereas willpower is what's needed to create that structure. But the base of it is love. At the source of it is love. If you don't have something you're passionate about, something that you love passionately, then you're not driven to discipline your life. You may start it, but then you can't sustain it. And a lot of people come up to me and ask, are you a motivational speaker? And I say, absolutely not. I actually do not believe in motivation, and I do not believe in inspiration, because I feel it's an injection of energy into someone and emotion to get them high for a moment, and then once that goes away, you default back to who you are. And when I was growing up, Jim, as a young kid, I'd go listen to monks speak, and because I was so fascinated with the monastic life. Every time a monk came to town, I asked my parents to go take me to see the monk speak. A lot of them would tell inspirational things, motivational things. I'd listen to them, go home, tell myself I'm going to practice everything they told me to do. And I did for about a week or 2 weeks.
Right.
Then all the inspiration went away, because you see the guy sitting on stage with the robe and the beard and the beats, and you go like, I want to be him. That's Kwai Chang Caine, just the Kung Fu master, I want to be him. And then the inspiration goes and you default back to who you are. Because there was never a deeper passion, right? And I realized that motivation and inspiration doesn't really work. What you want to figure out is, this is getting a little bit deeper. What is your purpose in life, and what's your passion in life, right? And once you figure out that passion, that love, that's the driving factor of your life, then it's so much easier to discipline your life. If you work with athletes, you work with professional actors, what drives them? They love what they do, right? They love the tennis players that you work with. They love tennis,
right?
And that love drives them to be disciplined.
And that purpose, determines their priorities.
Exactly. But if you didn't have that, you couldn't cultivate the willpower then to discipline your life. So I think a lot of people will struggle, and I don't want to deceive people by telling them like, hey, do this and you'll have the willpower you need to discipline your life.
Right.
Before that comes really finding out what your purpose in life is. What is it you're truly passionate about? Because then you'll do whatever it takes to discipline your life, and you'll cultivate your will and use your will then to create that structure, and that structure is that discipline. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't know their purpose because they've never spent any time trying to find their purpose. And there's no structured approach to it. So even when you're growing up, nobody tells you in school that you need a purpose in life. But if you look at your daily life, your whole life is driven by purpose. People get in a car, why? Because there's a purpose to drive to go to dinner, drive to go to work, right? You take a shower, there's a purpose. Everything you do throughout the day, all the mundane things is purpose-driven, so why shouldn't life have a purpose? And most people don't know their purpose because they never spend time with themselves. And then Jim, people say to me, I spend time with myself. Every evening I walk my dog for half an hour. That's my alone time. And I'm like, no, that's walking your dog. And me, I love defining things. People say, I go for a jog in the park. That's my alone time. I go, no, that's jogging in the park. You can't say, that's your alone time. When I say you want to find your purpose, you need to sit down, no music, no podcasts, no journals, eyes closed, going internally and having a dialogue with yourself. The way I can get to know you is to spend time with you, right? We met every week, every Friday for lunch for 2 hours. After a year, we know each other really well.
Right.
I know what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what drives you, what doesn't drive you. Same way, how would you discover your purpose? By spending structured time with yourself in introspection. And if you don't know what you want, then you'll never be driven. And that's why if you look at most people, they go from one thing to another. They're driven by the trends of society. Now this is popular, so I'll do it for a while. Maybe it's yoga, then it's soul cycling, and then it's this and it's that. And people are just going from one thing to another. But if you look at the most successful people in the world, they just do one thing.
Right.
They play tennis or they play football. Like the people, one or two of the athletes that I work with, one's a soccer player, and that's all he's done ever since he was a kid. He's played soccer. He doesn't do tennis. I mean, he might play with his cousin on the weekend or something, but that's all he does. He just does one thing, and that's why he excels in it.
And people find love and joy
in what they do,
in what they're doing currently.
Yeah, I believe so. I remember a cute story. I was in the monastery talking to my guru, and I had some assignment that he'd given me, and I just didn't like it. And he saw that I wasn't passionate about it, that I had no love for it. And he reached down in front of him, and he picked up a pencil and held it in front of him, and he said, "I can get inspired by this pencil. Look at this piece. Look at this pencil. It's a piece of wood with a lead in it. They drilled a hole, they stuck a lead in there. Isn't that fascinating? How did they get the lead in there?" And he started to dive into that pencil in such a concentrated way that I started to get inspired by this pencil. Right? So he taught me then my ability then to be concentrated and to dive into what I'm doing, whether it's washing the dishes or sweeping the floor or cleaning the house or working on accounting or my business. I can get passionate about what I want to. If I took the time to stay focused on it and really explore it. Right? Most people can't stay concentrated on something long enough to actually see joy in it. So one simple technique that my guru taught me in the monastery, the way to develop willpower is to finish what you begin. It's really easy to start something, but to finish something takes tremendous amount of will, right? At the start, everybody's inspired, they're full of enthusiasm and energy.
Because they're motivated.
They're motivated, right? So something new, it's inspiring, and then halfway through the project, everybody looks at each other and go, whose idea was this? Right? And then people just abandon it and go start something new. When you finish what you begin, it requires tremendous amount of will. So the way I develop my bicep is I use my bicep to lift weights to develop more bicep, right? I use my bicep to develop bicep. The way you develop willpower is you use your mental muscle to develop more muscle. So every time you finish what you begin, you're actually developing willpower. So for me, the way I develop willpower is I look at my average day and I go, what are the opportunities in my day that I can use to develop willpower? One simple thing that I talk about quite often is every day I sleep, right? It's a reoccurring event. I never go a day without sleeping, right?
Me too.
Right? So every day I sleep. So before I sleep, I floss, I brush my teeth, throw on my pajamas, I go to sleep. How do I finish the process of sleep? I make the bed in the morning. So every day I wake up in the morning, I make the bed. There's not a single day that goes by that I haven't made the bed in the last 25 years. Right? So every day I wake up, I finish. So when I make the bed, I finish what I begin, and I'm developing willpower. So now most people look at mundane things throughout the day, like making the bed, as kind of like, oh, that's a mundane task. Why should I waste time or energy? Whereas in the monastery, we were trained that all the simple tasks throughout the day, from making the bed to putting away your cups or washing your breakfast dish in the morning, and you come into the house and you take your shoes off, instead of kicking it to the side, you can put them neatly. It takes an extra 5 seconds, but you're finishing the process of coming home, right? And all those things are little acts to develop willpower. And imagine if you were taking a pebble and putting it in a jar every time, 2 weeks later, the jar will be filled with pebbles. So I looked at the tasks throughout the day, finishing those tasks as opportunities to develop willpower. And after a month, I've developed tremendous amount of willpower. Now I can use that willpower and direct it align it with my passion to create discipline in my life, so that I can enjoy what I love more.
Because how you do anything is how you're training yourself to do everything.
Exactly, yeah. And it's about creating rituals throughout the day. And people don't realize that, right? So the whole monastery, the life in the monastery was filled with rituals. everything we did the whole day. By looking at a monk, you could tell what time of day it was, because you knew what he was doing, right? So I've structured my life now to create as many rituals as possible throughout the day. And I'm even training my 10-month-old daughter the same way. You know, she sleeps at a certain time, she eats at a certain time, we take her for a walk at 5 o'clock in the evening every day at 5 p.m. She bathes at a certain time, just to train the rituals. And rituals shape the subconscious mind, helps you to create those patterns in the subconscious.